You're listening to Dr. Omega by Arnould Galopin, performed by Paul Pemberton.
They found us. I always feared this day would come. Maybe you're mistaken. Trust me, I always know when one of those monsters' vessels is near. You have to flee now. Stay hidden. The rest of this world they might spare, but not you. How can I possibly survive without you? I've taught you everything you need to do. I've taught you everything you need to survive on this planet. I didn't mean that way. There's nothing you can do for me. I can't be moved, and this will be the first place they'll come looking for you. You have to go now. Well, that wasn't my smoothest takeoff, Dr. Omega said as he finished repairing the controls of the Cosmos. No kidding, I thought I was gonna die, Dennis replied as he adjusted his new suit, the one good souvenir he picked up on the last adventure. You think that every time we take off? The doctor snapped. Yes, well, it takes a bit of getting used to, you know. All this traveling through space, being chased by monsters. The doctor sighed in frustration. It's been 6 months, my boy. You should be used to it by now. I don't seem to have this problem with Zaru, and he's been traveling with me for just as long. Yes, well, maybe I'm just not cut out for this life of adventure, Dennis said in a most self-pitying fashion. No, I didn't mean that. I just mean you have to be a bit more positive outlook, my friend. Yes, believe me, I've seen the worst of the universe has to offer. But if you look hard enough, my boy, you can find the beauty and the good in some of the darkest corners of the universe. Dennis rolled his eyes in frustration. I can't believe someone so old could be so naive, Dennis thought to himself. Dinner's ready, Zaru interrupted. Zaru had been quite the chef. At the start of the travels, Dr. Omega had always prepared he, Dennis, Fred, and Zaru's meals. Cooking was one of the good doctor's favorite pastimes. Sadly, however, for him, one night when the doctor was ill with a living virus that nearly turned him into a monster, Zaru took over the cooking, and Fred and Dennis liked it so much they let the little Martian prepare the food on alternate nights. Before he knew it, Dr. Omega was eclipsed as the ship's chef. They never said it, but Fred and Dennis had never really liked Omega's cooking anyway. Just because he can build a time machine, he thinks he's good at everything, Fred used to moan to Dennis in secret. Even Dr. Omega himself couldn't help but admit that the Martian's food was some of the best he had ever tasted, though he'd always still try and find fault with it somehow. Zaru, however, took the doctor's jealous little digs as the compliments they really were. Just as soon as Fred, who was always the first to get stuck, picked up his fork, the familiar sound of the Cosmos landing rang through the ship. Good, the doctor said. We've arrived. I'm afraid this lovely meal will have to wait, the doctor continued before he rushed into the main room. Oh, come on, Doctor. Surely it can wait a bit, Fred complained. I'm afraid not. Who knows why we've been brought here? It could be a random journey. Or perhaps we have to help shape some important part of history of the universe itself. You really want to waste time eating that dross? No offense, Sorrow, my boy.
None taken, the Martian sighed.
Dr. Omega opened the shutters to reveal that they had landed on a jungle planet. The bark on the trees was purple, whilst the leaves were both green and red. The forest was so thick that they couldn't even see the sky above, though it appeared to be night. In the distance, Dr. Omega could also see what looked like a small, bipedal reptilian creature with two small horns on the back of its head and a long serpentine tail. It had two very small forearms and mouth full of sharp teeth. Overall, it looked like a small dinosaur-like creature, albeit it was covered in thick brown fur rather than scales, except for its face and feet. The alien appeared to be a carnivore, as it had dragged the remains of a kill nearby for safety. It could sense a disturbance in the air, but couldn't interact with the cosmos in any way, shape, or form. A modification the Doctor had built into the new and improved cosmos, after the previous ship had been destroyed on their haphazard journey to Mars, allowed the vessel to be placed in a state of temporal grace. Whenever it landed, the cosmos wouldn't actually land. It would instead be placed in a bubble outside of time and space, connected to, but not interacting with the world it had seemingly landed on. Those inside the ship, however, could still enter the world or time it was connected to, and only they could re-enter the ship. The Doctor had built this into the vessel, both to allow it to land anywhere and to prevent it from ever falling into the wrong hands again, like the first Cosmos had with the Martians. Dr. Omega checked all the readings which showed the planet had a breathable atmosphere, and as per usual, he made sure his crew ate their psychogenic pills that they had picked up near the start of his travels with Dennis and Fred. These pills would temporarily give whoever consumed them the power to understand any alien language, and vice versa, mere a mild case of telepathy. Variants of the pills that could allow those who consumed them to read people's minds more completely had been created in the late 49th century, but these were dangerous and unpredictable. The Doctor, as always, was the first to step foot outside into the surface of the planet. Nothing quite like standing on an alien world for the first time, he beamed.
Depends on the planet,
Fred said back. Yes, well, let's see if this one is worth our time. I didn't think much of your world at first, you know, Dr. Omega continued as he led the way through the thick forest ahead. In the undergrowth, Omega and the others could see several more hairy, dinosaur-like creatures scurrying around, playing, and in some instances fighting with one another. The four time travelers, however, stopped as soon as they came across a larger creature at the end of a patch of forest. The monster stood close to 20 feet off the ground. It had 4 legs that ended in 3 clawed toes, a long tail that was covered in spikes down either end, and a single row of long, bony spikes down its hump back. The monster also had a mane around its head, which was small, squat, and bird-like. The creature overall was covered in fur except for its legs, belly, and head, all of which were covered in thick scales. It appeared to be a plant-eater and somewhat gentle in nature. as when Dr. Omega approached it to pat the beast on the head, it didn't even react.
Fascinating, the Doctor exclaimed. On this planet, it appears that the dominant life forms resemble a cross between mammals and reptiles. Makes sense, I suppose. The reptiles and mammals on your planet, Dennis and Fred, evolved from the same ancestors. It looks like on this planet, rather than settle for one or the other, they kept certain characteristics of both for whatever evolutionary reason. Question is, what shall we call these wonderful creatures?
Mamasaurs, Dennis said, only to be met with disappointing looks from the others, except Zaro. I like it, the Martian said enthusiastically. Suddenly, the creature started to groan and back away from the time travelers.
Down, now, big fella. Relax. We're not going to hurt you,
the Doctor said reassuringly. The monster let out a roar and started to swing its tail before a spear came flying from one of the trees into the side of the beast. It only made a small cut, but that was large enough for the Mamasaur to charge its way through the trees, nearly trampling the 4 time travelers, who barely managed to get out of the way in time. As they hoisted themselves back up, they saw several strange humanoids emerging from the trees, carrying weapons. The humanoids had scaly faces, chests, arms, and legs, along flowing manes of hair. They also had thick hair on their backs and the palms of their hands. Their faces were reasonably human, though their eyes were red, and they all possessed a fork-like tongue and sharp, pointy teeth, as well as claws on their hands. 3 of the creatures surrounded Omega and his companions, pointing spears their way.
Are you with Glynce?
Their leader asked. He was much taller and older looking than the rest of the pack. His hair had even begun to grey. Who? Who? Dr. Omega replied.
I'm afraid I don't know who you're talking about. My name is Dr. Omega. These are my friends, Fred, Dennis, and Zaru, who, as you can see, is a different species. Well, so am I, from all 3 technically, but still, we're just travelers, making our way through the galaxy.
Nobody travels through here. This entire galaxy is cut off.
Well, a machine has a way of getting past most defenses. I'll show you.
Suddenly, the aliens were distracted by a bright light in the sky, which also caught the Doctor's attention to a greater extent than his companions. It wasn't the usual excitement that having discovered a new species that Fred, Zaru, and Dennis were used to, however. The Doctor looked both horrified and terrified.
They have come, just as they said they would. We must abandon the hunt. Come on, the leader said.
Excuse me, old boy. I know you're busy, but if you wouldn't mind letting me know just what is going on here,
the Doctor asked.
If what you tell me is true, you'll leave this world just as easily as you came, for your sake. Our species' freedom is over. Our history itself may be over. We'd like to spend our last days with our families.
The leader of the tribe of humanoid Mamasaurs said. Before Dr. Omega could ask any more questions, the rest of the tribe fled.
We always do seem to land in the nick of time. I told you the timeline often drags us to where we're needed. Still, could maybe now and again leave us a note or something to let us know what's going on.
Dr. Omega replied before trying to follow the humanoids, who were able to leap through the air with tremendous speed. In just a few moments, the creatures were completely out of view. Despite his old and somewhat frail appearance, the Doctor was a lot stronger and faster than any of his companions, who ironically couldn't keep up with him.
Damn! If only they'd let us explain that we could help them, the Doctor said in frustration.
Can we, though? Dennis said whilst panting. I mean, we don't even know what we're up against.
No, I suppose not. No, I might have an idea. He paused. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm not, these people could be in for some far trying times ahead.
I can't believe it. I know you always said you were from another world, and you look different to us. But I always assumed you were some kind of weird sea creature or something, one of the Mammosaurs said to Kanzi. Shut up! We have one chance, just one, she replied. Your mother said it wouldn't work. She said we should keep hidden, another Mammosaur interrupted. How are we going to do that if these monsters overrun the entire planet? There will be nowhere to run. No, if we can, we have to take the fight to them now. And if there is too many of them, well, at least we will go down fighting, Kanzi said in response. Less than 50 feet ahead, the alien ship had landed in a small open area. Fortunately, Kanzi and the 3 natives accompanying her were concealed in a patch of forest. The alien's ship looked more like a glowing ball of gold light that hovered just above the ground than a vessel. The aliens themselves, meanwhile, who soon emerged from the sphere, appeared to be made out of a similar substance. They actually merged out of the ship itself, rather than leave through some kind of exit, though they glowed just the same and hovered above the Earth. Overall, they were humanoid in shape, except that they had no legs, just a round base. Their faces looked human, whilst they had strong, large features and red glowing eyes with no pupils. Only the females had what looked like hair that appeared to be made out of fire. The creatures were strangely beautiful, but fortunately Kanzi knew what they were truly like. She fired up her weapon, possibly the last like it left in the entire universe. For a few minutes nothing happened, though one of the aliens up above appeared to notice something. Just as it flew towards the woods, however, the monster started to convulse, and within a few seconds it vanished into a puff of gold smoke. The same thing happened to all the others in a quick succession. Whilst the ball of energy first broke apart into several similar creatures, who then all vanished in the smoke too. It worked! One of the natives shrieked, whilst the others danced with joy. Now we can fight back, Kanzi said to herself. Unfortunately, however, the destruction of this scout ship was instantly detected by the mothership.
All contact with scout ship has been lost, Commander. They've been killed, one of the subordinates said. That is not possible. Earlier reports said life on this planet was primitive. There is not a trace left of them, sire. Then that means the rumors are true after all. To think one of these monsters could still be alive on this miserable planet down there. Order all troops to attack at once. I want that planet torn apart piece by piece until we find the last of those monsters.